Welcome to another Lombardi Live. It's got to be Tuesday, and it is Tuesday. One of the great things we have coming up on Drum Channel is here with me today. We're going to be talking with him, Billy Amendola. Billy, I kind of gave it away a little bit there, but thank you for joining me today.
It's my pleasure, Don. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's nice to see you.
You are, and I've been seeing your name as you have out there probably for years, and you might be thinking, Billy Amendola, I know that name, I've seen it somewhere.
Well, as most of, a lot of people know, I had left Modern Drummer a couple of weeks ago after being there for close to 30 years. So, you know, I want to do some different things, and I think we're going to talk about a few things that are going to be coming up. I've always been a fan of Drum Channel. I always loved what you did from day one. I've always been a big supporter. You know, I've always supported you. And Editor-at-Large, at first when they told me they were changing my title to Editor-at-Large, I was like, what the heck is an Editor-at-Large? You know, because I never really considered myself a journalist or an editor anyway. But I looked it up, and it meant that I had no boss. So I was like, I'll take that.
I've never known that that's what it meant. So now we've cleared that up. We all know what editor-at-large means. That's perfect. And you are on the East Coast, which is filling a nice void for us here on Drum Channel, because obviously we're on the West Coast. And what Billy was alluding to is he's going to be the host of our Drum Channel podcast going forward. So you'll be getting at least one a week, and who knows how many as you are interviewing and running into people that are on the East Coast for us. You're aware of a lot of things we have coming up. We have live lessons now.
Well, you know what? I love what you recently did with the with Chad and Thomas and Greg.
Chad Wackerman's course is the Murray Spivak method, which at a university level would be the first course you would take, because it shows you how to use your body to learn the rudiments on a snare drum. Then the next logical thing would be taking those rudiments and applying to the drum set, which is what Thomas Lang's Drum Universe is all about. Times 100, by the way, because, you know, he could take it to a whole different level depending on how much time you have to practice and how much you would get into his 200 lessons. So you learn how to play, you get the rudiments on the snare drum, you learn how to apply them to the drum set. Next thing is applying them to beats and fills. That's where Greg Bissonette comes in with his course, and that shows you how you can apply everything you've learned on a drum set. Then you take it to the next level, and you get to where you can actually utilize everything that you've learned musically in a band, and that's Terry Bozzio's course. So those four courses kind of sequentially will get you, if you're really serious, you know, get you to the point where you're going to be able to be a professional drummer and covering almost everything that you would come up across out there.
Talking about playing, a lot of people didn't know how great a drummer you were until you played at the Modern Drummer Festival back in the 80s with Ron Spignati and Vic Firth and Roy Burns and Herb Broxley from Promark. We decided, let's have all the people behind the scenes, manufacturers and people behind the scenes, play. And I brought it up to Ron, and Ron at first was like, yeah, no, I don't know about that. And I was like, come on, that would be so much fun. That would be so much fun. Call a few of your friends that are great players so we can show everybody that these guys are drummers, they play. So do you remember that experience?
There's a story behind that, and that kind of brought me out of my, retirement, because that was in the mid 80s, I believe. And starting in 1980-81, I had to make a commitment. Pretty much 60 hours a week was DW. So I was around drums, but with a wrench and a screwdriver, much more than a pair of drumsticks, And you get to the point where you're not at the level where you used to be, and so you kind of, it becomes something that kind of defeats you a little bit. Like, you're not going to go out there and play because you should practice first before you go out there and play. The same symptoms I'm suffering from, here we are all these years later. So I'm going to get back to practicing one of these days, coming up really soon. Actually, we're going to be doing a series of lessons that I'll tell you about a little later here on Drum Channel that I'm going to be involved with. But going back to that call, Ron Spagnardi, the editor of Modern Drummer, calls me, says, I'm going to put something together just to open up the show, and it's going to be drummers who are manufacturers, just to show kids that drummers used to play. So I thought, well, that's kind of cool, because the owner of the three companies that I was competing against at that time, Tama Pearl and Yamaha, didn't have players involved, at the ownership level of their company. So I thought that might be an interesting point. So I thought I can practice a little bit. Like, what are we going to do? He says, well, I said, I haven't played in like 3 or 4 years, Ron. I don't necessarily. And Ron was playing casuals on weekends and things in those days, and I was sitting in a little bit. But he said, no, it's going to be like you, Herb Brockstein. And I thought, well, I can cover this because I know Herb, and so we'll just kind of kick back and do our thing. Herb has the big animal head, front bass drum head with the hair still hanging off of it, and so I thought I can do it with Herb. So I said, Ron, after a couple of phone calls, said, yeah, I'll do it. Let's do it. So I called Herb. He said, okay, we'll do it too. So then we get a little bit closer to it. So we're going to rehearse. He said, I got everybody set up. I said, who else do you have there? He said, Roy Burns and Vic Firth. I said, holy shit, Ron. I said, you got like A-level guys, that we're sitting there going to be trading fours with and doing things with. I said, this. He said, no, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So 2 backstories to that. We go to Modern Drummer, and, we haven't rehearsed this at all. So the whole idea, and I talked with Roy about it ahead of time, it's like, let's keep it as simple as possible to avoid a train wreck. So we picked a tune. I think it was Billy's Bounce. Do you remember? We picked a jazz tune that we all knew. Come on, Adam, what is that? That's right. So we all knew the head. So the idea was we would all play together and like sing the head to ourselves, and then we would trade fours and go around 3 different times, and then we would play the head again. We'd take fours, and then we'd each take a little extended solo. Then we would all play the head again. So it was set up with Ron first, and then then Herb next, then I was third, and then Roy, and then Vic. So that was the way that's the way we were set up on the stage, and that's the way we would obviously go around. So we play the tune, and it goes off okay at the beginning. Ron starts trading fours, comes around, we each trade fours, gets back to Ron again, and he's so excited, instead of doing it just 3 times, he decides to do another 4, which is fine, so we just all make up another 4 as we're going around, then we play the solo. However, the legitimate side of the percussion industry is Vic Firth, who plays everything that's written down. He doesn't improvise. So it's now coming to him again with another opportunity to play another 4 bars that wasn't supposed to happen in the original conversation. So as I recall it, he pulled it off very well because, he's a consummate musician, but he kind of played the first 4 bars again on different tone colors and different instruments to make it work out so we'd all end up at the same place. And Roy was right after me. And Roy, of course, just nailed it. And then when they put out the Modern Drummer, every year you would put out the DVD, I think it was DVDs back in those days, or VHSs maybe even back in those days, of the festival. And so they listed everybody that was at the festival, and then at the end it said, and much more, which was what I called our percussion ensemble because we didn't get any name in the credits on the DVD. So I used to see Vic for years after that and say, hey, this part of the And Much More percussion ensemble that opened up the Modern Drummer Festival that day. But anyways, fond memories. Fill us in a little bit, your playing days back with the band.
Back in the well, I went on the road when I was 14 years old. And everybody in the band, we all grew up together. I had a band called Mantis, and we were a rock band, and we went on the road and we played the whole tri-state area, and then we started to travel a little bit, and then we were together at night. Well, me and Frankie DiCrescenzo started the band in '74, and then we got John Kaz, and then we got Jimmy Bradford, and then Jimmy Mayer was the last one in '76. And that's when we were called Gypsy, and then we were a heavy rock band. We were playing Queen and Zeppelin and Deep Purple and that, but we were into so much different music, but we were always into writing our own songs. And in 1976, we changed the name of the band after Jimmy Mayer came in. We changed it to Mantis, and we went out and we toured all around, and we were doing lounges. We were doing so many different kind of gigs, and we had a manager. They put us in, dressed us up a little bit more, and we played a couple of little corporate gigs here and there, but that's not really what we wanted. We wanted to be a rock band. We played CBGB's at the time when it was at its peak. And then in 1978, we were playing at a place here in New York, a club called Trudy Heller's, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. You know what those days are like. You know, no one's in the club. There's hardly anybody there. We still had to play a full set, and we were playing our rock songs, but we figured we were all into R&B and funk. So we went into Brick House for about a half hour. And of course, as you know, playing in clubs, the club owner came over to yell at us because that's not what we were supposed to be doing. But we were saying, like, you know, there's nobody here. But you know that story, what they say, play your best because you never know who is there. But we were playing our best, but we were doing funk music instead of the rock set that we were supposed to be doing. So after we finished, this one gentleman, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, this one gentleman comes up to us and he says, you know, I really, really like you guys. And you have so much soul. I have a small independent dance label. Do you think you could come into the studio and could you guys write a disco song? And we all looked at each other, you know, 5 guys from Brooklyn, really, really long hair. I was only 19 years old at the time and 20 years old. And we said, sure, yeah, we could do that. When do you want us and everything? So long story short, we went into the studio with him. We wrote what we thought was, you know, a disco song. Ray Chu, the famous keyboard player, he was playing with Diana Ross at the time. Now Ray is everywhere, Dancing with the Stars, and he was on so many TV shows, and he's still a big musical director. He played keyboards on it, and we had enough success in Canada. He released it only in Canada. We had enough success that he made a little bit of money to make another record. And then we came back, and he said, I'd like to do an album, but let's do a 12-inch first, because 12-inch dance mixes, all the clubs, Studio 54. We played all those places, the Funhouse. And, well, I jumped ahead. We did the record, and then we did the 12-inch, and then all of a sudden we had the #2 dance record for 8 weeks on the biggest radio station in New York, and then all over the world. It was in the top 10. All of a sudden, we're playing Studio 54. We're playing all these. We looked like a rock band. Everybody thought that we were an African American band, so they wouldn't put our picture on the cover. But we were proud of that. We were very happy that everybody thought, you know, that we were an African American band, because let's face it, that's where that music started from. We were all into it. So the record took off, and then we did the album, and then we had another top 10 hit off the album. And then we toured around the world. We did TV shows. We did, you know, I played Rockstar for a few years, and that was my college. And then we did our second album in 1980. We had a third top 10 dance record, which they still play today on Sirius on Studio 54. And that's it. We were like considered one of the biggest dance bands in the world. But the thing was, because we went in so blindly and naive, well, we signed bad contracts. That wasn't good. But we went in thinking that we were going to do a dance song, but we were a little bit heavier. You know, so it gave us our own sound. And I was the first one here in the States to start using electronics. So that Syndrome sound really became famous because it was featured on the first 2 singles. So later on, it helped me a lot because I got so much studio work out of it. And everybody would say, can you play that sound? Because that sound, that Simmons, I had Simmons at the time after that, but the Syndrome sound became so popular and famous that everybody wanted that on commercials. So I started doing commercials, and that's when I got into studio work. And then I played the band, you know, they were older than me, so everybody started going different ways. And we went back to playing rock and roll. We confused everyone because we didn't want to change the name of the band. And then we went back, we actually played CBGBs again. We played all the rock clubs in the city, but we were confusing everyone because they came thinking that they were going to hear the dance songs, and we were back to playing rock. So it got a little confusing. But, you know, then we went our separate ways, and that's when I started doing studio work. And luckily, I played on a couple of hit records, and, that became classics. The Debbie Gibson, Only in My Dreams, and Shake Your Love from her debut album. And so many, my audition was the band. So we know how that works. You know, people hear you on the radio and they hear you on record. That got me into the studio scene. And then getting into electronics, I embraced drum machines, and that turned me into a songwriter and a producer. So that's what I've been doing. And then when I got the gig at 40 years old at Modern Drummer, I was like, Well, I've never worked in an office before, and God bless Ron. I mean, Ron, and you remind me so much of Ron. You guys were so close. He invented a job for me.
Your phone book probably has more of the top artists in the world in it than anybody else's that I know. When you're talking to somebody and he can just ring up Ringo because he has his cell phone number in his phone, you've got a guy that knows pretty much everybody in the world, as you have built that reputation, through the years.
I think Drum Channel is the perfect vehicle for the real serious drummer who wants to learn. And now hopefully I'll bring some of the craziness and some entertainment over there. And everyone, if you're not familiar with Drum Channel, you should be. And again, I'm honored to have a home, a new home, and whatever you need me for, I'm here.
Thank you so much, and we're going to see you real soon, and we're going to see you real soon too here on drumchannel.com. Thank you, Billy.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.